It's a strange feeling, one that no one ever expects to have during a regular day at school. When you think about lockdowns, they're meant to be drills, precautions, something that lasts a few minutes before the announcement comes over the intercom. All clear. You pick up your backpack, shuffle out of the classroom, and resume your life as if nothing happened. But some lockdowns are different. Some stay with you forever. Some stories, like the one I'm about to tell, are a bit too real. This is the story of a series of school lockdowns that took place over the course of 2 weeks at Ridgemont High School. An incident that no one talks about anymore. But no one has ever truly forgotten. It all started on a Monday. It was a regular day just after lunch when the first lockdown happened. A voice crackled over the intercom, not the calm, well-rehearsed tone we were used to, but a shaky, breathless voice. "We're going into lockdown. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The air in the classroom changed in an instant. My classmates looked at each other, eyes wide, but no one said anything. Our teacher, Mr. Davis, closed the blinds and turned off the lights, motioning for us to huddle in the corner farthest from the door. As we sat there, huddled together in complete silence, every sound seemed magnified. The buzz of the fluorescent lights, the creak of the building settling. It was like the school itself was alive, listening to us. At first, we all thought it was just a precaution, something like an intruder in the area, maybe. But then we started hearing noises, faint footsteps in the hallways, dragging sounds, like something heavy was being pulled across the floor. My heart started to pound. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Whoever was out there wasn't running or panicking. They were taking their time. Every student in the room held their breath, and I could feel the tension building in my chest. Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the door. Everyone jumped, muffled gasps escaping from a few of my classmates. The doorknob rattled, but it didn't open. After a few tense moments, the footsteps continued down the hallway, fading into the distance. We stayed locked down for an hour before the all-clear was given. When the lockdown was over, there was no explanation, no police cars outside, no warnings about what had caused it. The teachers didn't say a word. It was as if the whole thing had never happened. The following Monday, it happened again. Another lockdown. This time the announcement was even more panicked. "Lockdown! Now! This is not a drill!" We all rushed to the corner of the classroom again, the fear from last week fresh in our minds. But this time, it was different. We began hearing it sooner. Those same slow footsteps, pacing the hallways like they were searching for something. They were closer this time, almost as if the figure had been waiting for the lockdown to begin. The footsteps stopped outside our classroom. The doorknob jiggled once, twice, then fell still. We could hear breathing, loud and raspy, just beyond the door. My heart was hammering in my chest, my skin clammy with fear. Then came the whispering. It was faint at first, barely audible, but as the seconds ticked by, the whispering grew louder. It wasn't coming from outside the door, it was inside the room. My classmates exchanged terrified glances, and I saw Mr. Davis's face go pale. The whispering became clear enough to understand, but it wasn't in English. It was a language I'd never heard before, a low, guttural muttering that seemed to fill the air around us. It was as if the walls themselves were speaking. Then just like that, the sound stopped. The footsteps continued down the hallway, and after what felt like an eternity, the all-clear was given again. But this time, something was different. When we stepped out of the classroom, we saw something smeared across the lockers. At first it looked like graffiti, but the closer we got, the more we realized it was a word. "You're next." No one talked about it. No one mentioned it to the principal or the teachers. The smear was gone the next day, but the unease lingered. By Friday of the same week, the lockdowns had become something we all dreaded. Every day, there was something new. A noise, a shadow moving in the distance, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. The third lockdown was the worst of all. It started the same way, with a sudden announcement. "Lockdown! This is not a drill!" But this time, we didn't hear footsteps. Instead, we heard a soft tapping, like fingernails gently rapping against the windows. The windows in our classroom were small, high up on the walls, and we were on the second floor, but the sound was unmistakable. Mr. Davis motioned for us to stay quiet, but it was too late. One of the students, a girl named Emily, stood up and moved toward the window, as if she was in a trance. "Emily, stop," Mr. Davis whispered, but she didn't listen. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. Emily reached the window and stood on tiptoes to look out. Her face went pale as a sheet, and she stumbled backward, shaking her head. "There's something out there," she whispered. "It's watching us." The tapping stopped, and for a moment everything was silent. Then, without warning, the door to our classroom slammed open. There was no one there, just an empty hallway, bathed in dim light. Mr. Davis hurried to close the door again, but something heavy pushed back, forcing it open. He stumbled backward, eyes wide with fear, but there was nothing there, just empty space. The whispering started again, louder this time, filling the room with that same strange language. The air grew thick, and it became harder to breathe. My classmates were shaking, some of them crying quietly, and I could feel my own pulse racing. Then just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The door slammed shut on its own, and the silence returned. That was the last lockdown we ever had at Ridgemont High. No one knew why they stopped, and no one ever really talked about what had happened. The school administration brushed it off as a series of unrelated events, saying that the noises and disruptions were caused by construction in the building. But we knew better. After the third lockdown, Emily never came back to school. Rumors spread that she'd been sent to a psychiatric hospital, that she'd been unable to sleep since seeing whatever was outside that window. The teachers never acknowledged the strange occurrences, and Mr. Davis left the school at the end of the year. He moved out of town, and I never saw him again. But those of us who were there still remember. We remember the footsteps, the whispering, the shadows. We remember the feeling of being watched, of being hunted during those long, silent minutes in the darkened classrooms. Sometimes I drive past Ridgemont High on my way to work. It looks the same as it did back then, just an ordinary school in an ordinary town. But every time I pass by, I feel that same chill, like something is still watching, waiting for the next lockdown. There are some stories that are too terrifying to forget, no matter how much time passes. Ridgemont High's lockdowns are one of those stories, a reminder that sometimes the things we fear most aren't just in our imagination. And the scariest part, it could happen anywhere. Stay safe, and remember, The next time you hear the words, "This is not a drill," pay attention. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows.